In this section, we're going to launch into some more practical content and ask what collaborative teaching practice or CTP looks like in schools. It's about much more than just putting two teachers in the same space. In order to build great CTP in your school, you need to consider the whole co-teaching cycle. Educational researchers Lynn Sharratt and Michael Fullan argue that effective co-teaching involves much more than teachers teaching students in the same classroom. They see effective co-teaching as cyclical, moving through the 4 stages of co-planning, co-teaching, co-reflecting and co-debriefing, and then starting all over again. Each of these phases is equally important and deserves equal consideration when planning CTP initiatives, allocating funding and timetabling. First, co-teachers need to plan together. And this means genuine collaborative planning, not delegating, not splitting up the program and planning a section each, but discussing and planning as a team to make sure you take full advantage of the collective ideas and expertise of the whole team. Next, they need to co-teach, and we'll explore approaches to co-teaching in another section. Immediately after a co-teaching session, colleagues need to have a quick debrief to flag any issues from the lesson or things that went really well so they can discuss them later. This can happen on the way out of the classroom or to their next class, in the staff room at lunchtime, or via a quick message if you're co-teaching online. Finally, co-teachers need regular, scheduled co-reflection sessions for sharing observations on each other's teaching practice, analysis of student work, planning improvements and new strategies, and honestly evaluating the co-teaching relationship. This is where you might use a framework like the SCARF model to monitor the health of your co-teaching team, or ask each other strategic reflection questions to enable discussion and clarification of your roles, protocols, and processes as co-teachers. And there are certain practices and tips that will make sure your engagement in this co-teaching cycle works smoothly and has the most positive impact on your co-teaching practice. When you're co-planning, make sure your sessions are scheduled and regular. If you can, evidence suggests that setting aside at least 40 minutes for these sessions is great. If you can have them timetabled, that's ideal. Identify collaborative spaces for you to work in. This might be a staff room with a bunch of post-it notes, or it might be an online space in which you can create documents you can both use, like your own Microsoft team. This is where you also want to have frank and open discussions about place and purpose. Determine who will do what in each of your lessons. The co-teaching approaches we address in a separate section are useful here. And identify a shared purpose for each unit or lesson. Earlier co-planning sessions are also a great opportunity to discuss your plans for how to deal with potential conflicts and establish clear communication protocols. It's worth having a conversation about whether you communicate by email, text, online message, or in person, or whether, for example, you're willing to email one another on weekends. Work out your protocols and your boundaries straight away to avoid tension later. When you get into the classroom and co-teach, make sure you keep your communication open during the lesson to make sure you can speak with one voice. Nobody wants the kids to be able to play one teacher off against another. Using cooperative strategies can enable you to offer differentiated yet complementary support to your kids. Facilitating classroom discussions from different perspectives or using station teaching might be useful. Make sure you share the responsibility for feedback and keep it focused on outcomes, and keep communicating to ensure it's consistent. You don't want one teacher to become known as the easy marker. Keep those teacher-learner partnerships strong. Having a colleague in the room should enable more partnerships to flourish because kids have some choice in the teacher that they form a strong relationship with. When you finish a lesson, co-debrief quickly in the classroom, in the hallway on the way to next period, or in one of your staff rooms at recess or lunch. This is challenging, but it really is most powerful when it's immediate. Immediate and quick is better than delayed and extended. In person is better here too. Flag any aspects of your co-teaching in the session that went great or fell flat to discuss later on. And if you have any data on student learning that's come out of the lesson, say a group of students produced a piece of work that showed that they're ready for extension in a certain topic, raise it now so you can incorporate this into your planning for next lesson. Finally, your regular scheduled co-reflection session should be an entirely different beast, not a hallway chat, but a formal session with protected time in a quiet space if possible. Here you need to analyse your students' progress and use this data to evaluate the success of your co-teaching approaches. Then update your planning in response. Take the opportunity to engage in some critical reflection on your teaching practice. You might find it useful to keep a shared online journal or a hard copy daybook with notes and reflections because this can guide your discussion. Co-reflection sessions can sometimes be very spread out, so it can be difficult to remember what you need to reflect on. Review your learning goals and how you're progressing towards them. And take the time to reflect on your partnership. Discuss whether you're communicating well, whether there are any aspects of your collaborative partnership that aren't working for you, and any disagreements you might have. This could be the best PL you ever have, an opportunity to critically reflect on both your own teaching practice and your collaborative practice with a trusted colleague. And this co-teaching cycle really works. Sharratt and Fullen tell us that the co-teaching cycle is the most powerful way to improve teaching practice and implement changes in schools. What this means is that co-teaching can have a huge impact on student learning, but only when teachers engage in and commit to all stages of the co-teaching cycle. This is because the co-teaching cycle enables the collegial discussion, observation, and cyclical reflection that leads to professional growth and pedagogical change. So this concludes our section on the co-teaching cycle. We've reviewed the 4 stages of the cycle and introduced some practices that ensure your partnership will work well as you co-plan, co-teach, co-debrief, and co-reflect. If you're interested in learning some more about the co-teaching cycle, SLEC has published a co-teaching handbook which dives more deeply into each of the 4 phases, with tips for success drawn from contemporary research and from practicing DOE co-teachers. Check it out on SLEC's website. The URL is on your screen now, or just Google SLEC's co-teaching handbook.